वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। Okay guys, so today actually we're going to go a little bit off the topic from Gita and want to celebrate a birthday of really great personality that we had in past, Swami Vivekananda. How many of you guys have heard his name? Most of you guys, right? Hey, I cannot see who is the last. Can you guys put your camera on so we can talk? One person has no camera on. So you heard about Swami Vivekananda, right? So we're going to talk about him today. And why today? We're going to talk about him today because January 12th is his birthday. So we want to tribute to January 12th, give him a tribute on January 12th was his birthday. So that was this week, right? So we want to celebrate his birthday by talking about him today, right? We'll see how much we can talk about it, and if the time remains, we're gonna do some shlokas of Gita. Otherwise, we're gonna start Gita next week. Swami Vivekananda, he was that was a person who started, who got the Hinduism and explained the Hinduism to the entire world, right? So Hindu religion is only practiced in India, right? There is no other country. Nepal is there that practice Hinduism. So there is only 2 countries that practice Hinduism. There is some part of Sri Lanka, but there is not many country who has Hindu religion, right? So he brought Hindu religion to everybody in 18th century. So we are talking about Vivekananda Swami, who was born on January 12th, 1863. Yeah, 19th century, 1863. So, you know, he was the guy who actually come for World Parliament of Religion in USA, in Chicago. And when he came to give a speech, you remember, you all read the history of US, right? We are talking about this thing in 1893 when he was in USA. What was happening in USA, you can understand. You have read history. So he was in World Parliament of Religion. He stood up in his orange attire. And I'm going to show you Vivekananda Swami so you all know who we are talking about if you haven't heard about him. So in his orange attire, he stood in front of 7,000 people and he started his speech by saying, "Sisters and brothers of America." And he said that, as soon as he said that, all 7,000 people stood up and gave a big round of applause for him. Just for 2 minutes continuously, there was a clap. He couldn't continue his speech. And he started with just three words that he said, "Sisters and brothers of America." And then then he said, those words were enough to captivate the entire audience of 7,000 people. Now, what was it? Let's go in the history and talk about him. Why did these three words made such a big impact, and his speech and his all the lifelong the work he did was so impactful? Let's talk about it a little bit. So, this little guy was born in Calcutta, east of India, and he was born in a very influenced family. His father was named Vishwanathan and his mother was Bhubaneswari Devi. Bhubaneswari Devi was very religious, and she used to worship Shiva a lot. So it was his father was a lawyer, so it was he born in a very wealthy family. He was born, and then since the beginning of his early age, he was very he was very, what do you say, incredible energy that he had. He was very active. So at the age of 3, he was even so active that he used to there were 2 nannies to take care of him, and his mother used to pour cold water on his head to make him calm, and read some shlokas so that he can calm down. He was so restless and so full of energy. Since the beginning of his early ages, he has very much respect for wandering monk. Wandering monk is the monk who left their all possessions, all the people who have left all the possession of wealth, property, everything. They don't have anything. They beg for food, and they go from house to house, beg for food, and just do the spirituality. So he had very much, attachment with them. So he used to give everything what he had, even like a kid. One time he was in the street, and a wandering monk came, and he did not have anything. He actually opened his clothes and gave it to him. So he was kind of that guy who used to give everything. So his parents actually lock him in a room so he doesn't give everything of the house to these wandering monk. So when he was locked in the room, he used to throw the things outside his window for these monks. He used to throw the things and give it so that all the monks can get something. So he was so passionate about this all the monks that were going around. So slowly he started studying. He was a very intelligent kid. He's been known that he has read all the books in the library. Every single book that was in his school library, he has read. And even if you ask him any question from any book, he was able to answer those questions. He used to read the first page, the middle page, and last page, and he knew the book, what it was about, and he could explain everything about the book. He was so sharp, and he used to read so fast that he could finish a book. And it keep on saying that he was very, very intelligent, and his memorizing and grasping power was very strong. So when he was growing up, he was he was very fearless. So and one of the spirituality characteristics we have heard in chapter 2, that the person becomes fearless. He doesn't have a fear of anything. Fear of death goes away. Fear of getting hurt goes away. Everything goes away, right? When you are at the level of spirituality, when you understand that everything is Brahman. So he was very fearless. When he was little, people used to say in one of the trees that there is a ghost. He actually stood there for hours and hours to prove them that there is no ghost. His since the beginning of his early age of his childhood, everybody knew that this guy was something different. And then what happens is, he grew up, and he kept questioning that what is the truth, what is the ultimate truth, who is God, has anybody seen God, has anybody talked to God? And he used to go asking this question to all the monks that he used to meet. He used to go in to big professors and ask, you talk about these religion and everything, what is God, and how have you seen God, have you talked to God? You talk about God and you praise God, what is it? Another thing, he was very much not he did not connect with the idol worship, like the murti puja that we do, we put the god pictures and god thing, and then we sing glorious songs in front of God, and give them bath or do prasad and everything. He was not interested in those things. So he was like, why do we do those things, right? So he had a lot of questions in his mind. Now he went to a lot of people asking, and he never got a satisfactory answers out of anybody. So then he went one day. Somebody told him that there is a monk who is a priest in Kali Devi temple. Go and ask him. He does a lot of lectures on these spirituality and religion and everything. Go and ask him. So he went to Ramakrishna Paramhans, and he asked the question that, have you seen God? Ramakrishna Paramhans said, yes, I have. I have seen God same as I see you, and more intense I can see God, and I can talk to him. And then he said, Ramakrishna Paramhans continues saying that, you know what, people don't think about God. They cry about the property, the wealth, their wife, their kids, their brother, sister. They cry about that. If somebody seriously cry about God, then they can definitely see and talk to God. So as he said, he got very fascinated with Ramakrishna Paramhans, but then his intellect, where he was kind of the person who don't believe in books or somebody who says something, he believed in his own experience, right? So his intellect did not let him believe Ramakrishna Paramhans. So, but the way Ramakrishna Paramhans said he saw God and he talked to the God and everything, it keep bringing him back to Ramakrishna Paramhans, and he keep learning from him, and he start teaching him Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and Dhyan and Dhyan Yoga and all the yogas that he started learning from Ramakrishna Paramhans. As soon as he got to learn, he used to test. He was the guy. He later on said that do not believe the thing because you have read in the book. Don't believe because someone has said so. Find out the truth for yourself, and that is realization. So he always used to test his guru himself. He used to go. So Ramakrishna Paramhans used to say that when you get this enlightened, when you become enlightened, the money, the possession, the property, the things that the worldly thing doesn't attract you anymore. And then he said, you know what? If somebody gives me money, I'm so allergic to all these metals that I get allergic reaction to those. So he said it, but then, as Vivekananda Swami used his intellect all the time. He said, oh, my guru said that he get allergic reaction with the metal. Let me test him. So he put a coin underneath his pillow to check if he gets the allergic reaction or not. And the next day when Ramakrishna Paramhans woke up, he really got allergic reaction. So he woke up and he said, I couldn't sleep last night because there was something that was bothering me a lot. And then Vivekananda Swami understood that, whatever Ramakrishna Paramhans says, it's so much truth, and there is always a proof behind what he is saying. So eventually he became, a student for Ramakrishna Paramhans and started following his studies and his whatever he taught, all these things that he taught to him, how all the Vedanta that he educated him. Now what happened is, a lot of people follow Ramakrishna Paramhans at that time, right? So Vivekananda Swami, when he was studying, he realized that he's not made for these worldly things like getting married and then having kids, earning money, all those things. He was not meant for that. That's what he realized. So one day he went to Ramakrishna Paramhans and said, I want to be monk. I just want to go away from here, away from this worldly life, go in Himalayas and stay there and just meditate. I don't want to do anything else in this world. Then Ramakrishna Paramhans said, was got upset and he said, no, you are not meant for this. You are meant for bigger and bigger thing. You need to educate the world. You are not to go and sit alone and be selfish about your own salvation. You need to give salvation to many people in the world. So don't be selfish and go and sit in the Himalayas and be monk. So Vivekananda Swami agreed to his guru and said, okay, I will do what you want me to do. So he said, you are here to do God's work and you be there to do all this God's work. Now at age of 50, Ramakrishna Paramhans passed away. And in the last moment, he asked him to promise to do God's work. And he said, I will do God's work, and when my work is done, I will leave the body and I will go. So Vivekananda Swami promised him to do his work. Now after Ramakrishna Paramhans passed away, he did not know what to do, right? He was only 23-year-old kid, right? Think about that, 23-year-old. What would he know to educate the entire world on the spirituality? So he just went out to do the adventure, to see, to learn whatever he could learn from everywhere in India. So he went to Varanasi, Himalayas, North India, South India, everywhere he went and tried to learn what is out there, right? So he got a lot of, influential people who he sat down with. He went to Buddha, where Buddha did where Buddha got his education. He went there, he did meditation there. He learned a lot from many people, right? But also what he saw was the poor people of India, like people who were who didn't have to eat anything, who were suffering. The social problems that India was having. Education, agriculture problems. The British were there, ruling there at that time. India was ruled by Britishers. So he got to see that there were a lot of people that were in pain, in sorrow. There was a lot of poverty, uneducation, sanitizing was problem. A lot of other things were the problem. So he said, I'm here to do God's work. I'm going to educate spirituality, but how can I educate to poor people who are hungry? To educate somebody, you cannot educate somebody on empty stomach, right? So spirituality cannot be educated to people who are hungry, right? What they need right now, they need food, right? They don't need spirituality. You cannot say a hungry kid is sitting there or a hungry person is sitting there and say, go worship God right now. Or do Gita, second chapter. Let's talk about summary of Gita. Nothing will go to them, right? So he was very much, puzzled by all these problems that were going in India, because he walked all over India. There was nothing much to travel at that time. He used to walk or take buses and no money, right? He did not go with the money. So he became a wandering monk at that time. So eventually he reached to the end tip of India, Kanyakumari, which is like end part of India, and then there is oceans. So he was so puzzled by all these what he saw all over India that he went and he jumped in the ocean, and he swam and reached to a stone, just an island, a small island of stone. And he sat there and he meditated for 3 days continuously. And he was like, I need answer to what should I do? How should I start? What should I go with, right? So then he realized in his meditation that, there are so many. First of all, he has to do something about people of India to uplift them, right? Rather than teaching them spirituality, I need to uplift them. But his focus was not all India. He had a lot of knowledge around the world, every world, because he used to teach all the monks, all the history of entire world, the religion of entire world. So he was well versatile with all the religion, Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism, all the religion, Judaism, all these religion he knew. So during his meditation at Kanyakumari, he realized that he needs to make the world together, because there are many countries, every country has lot of strong points, right? So like India was very spiritually strong. Their spirituality was from ages, like Vedas were written long time ago, and it is such a strong religion that could be given to other countries. And like USA was very well versed in technology, so USA can spread technology to everybody. United Kingdom was very versed in politically handling the world. So they were so politically strong that he thinks that they should share their political strength to all over the world. So that came in his mind, saying that there should be East should teach some to West, and West should teach something to East. So the world should be taken as one planet, like how in Vedanta everything is Brahman, right? So there is no differentiation, no boundary that India has a boundary and America has a separate boundary. How about everybody come together and give their strength to each other, and that's how, you know, the world can be a better place to live. With that thought, he came back and he decided to come to America to give the spirituality in turns to get the technology of America to uplift the people of India, right? So he came up with this plan, and there were many people who were, you know, who wanted to help Swami Vivekananda. So people collected money to send him to United States for attending this Parliament of Religion, right? So he came to USA in a ship which went from Japan to Vancouver, and then the Parliament of Religion was in Chicago. So he came to Chicago. From Vancouver to Chicago, he came in the train. Now, when he reached Chicago in May, he went on May 31st. When he reached to Chicago and he was looking for Parliament of Religion, he realized that it was postponed till September. Now, from May to September, he has to be there, and there was nothing. There was not enough money for him to, you know, stay for that long. He never thought about to staying that long. He was like, I'm just going for religion of Parliament. I will do some, you know, talk about Vedanta and everything, and then that's it. But then now he has to stay till September. So he did not have money. He did not have anything to stay. So somebody informed him that you should go to Boston. And at Boston, the living is a little bit cheaper there, and you can survive there, and people can help you there. So he went to Boston, and where he met Professor John H. John H. Wright. He was a professor in Harvard University for Greek. He actually, when he started talking to Swami Vivekananda was very much learned man. So he said, he is such a learned man. He write in his book saying that Vivekananda Swami is such a learned man that all the professors together that are coming to World Parliament, he equal to all the professors that are coming. He is such a learned man. And he actually talked to Parliament. And another thing happened, another obstacle happens, because when he came to, in May when he came here, he realized that the deadline was already gone to participate in Parliament, in the Parliament religion. Nobody applied for him that he is coming, because nobody knew that there was something that you have to apply, and you have to be a part of an authorized organization. If you are not part of an authorized organism, organization, then you cannot participate in that. So he did not have any letter from any organization that he is part of it. Another thing, deadline was passed, he couldn't participate in it. But then, in one of the letters he write to his disciple to India that, you know, I'm in the middle of Son of Mary's and Father Christ kids. I am sure that they will help me out. And that's what happened. When you have this divine goal, it always somebody or somehow it helps you out in your obstacles. So what happened is, then when he met this professor in Boston, he actually connected him and said he has to be participate of this religion conference, because he is such a learned man, and if you miss him, means you are going to be not getting him a good education session from him. So he forced the Parliament House to take him. Now what happens when the September came, he was coming back to Chicago. This professor gave him address of his friend where he could go and stay with him and go to Parliament of Religion. While coming in the train, he lost the address. So when he came to Chicago, he was asking people that, where do you guys know this guy? He kept asking people, knocking their door. Nobody showed him the way where he needs to go. So that night, he actually slept in the train without eating anything, no food. He slept inside a train, which was, the freight train that stands on the railway station. He just went in one of the boggy and stayed there all night, slept there. Then morning he started searching again that where is the Parliament of Religion, and that day the session was starting. It was September 11th, the day of when the speech was need to be given. So he was on the street going around. At that time, one of the ladies saw him. He looked different because of his, the attire was totally different. It was the orange attire that he was wearing. But this lady saw that this guy is standing next to the street and he is looking for something. So she went outside her house and asked him what he's looking for. And he explained. And so she brought her in. That was Mrs. George Hill. She brought him inside the house, make him eat some breakfast, and then took him to Parliament of Religion. So many obstacles came, but still he was there eventually. Now when he saw 7,000 people sitting in that hall, he was very nervous. In his book, he said, I was never nervous to speak to people, but that was one time in my life that I was so nervous to speak. And so he went to the organizer and said, make me last. Tell him, I'm not prepared. He did not prepare any speech. He thought he will say whatever he says all the time in India, and it's okay, but this was a different setting. So organizer made sure that he was the last one to speak. Now eventually his time came too. So his time came, and the first thing, he came to the stage and he said, brothers and sisters of America. And as soon as he said, everybody was with joy stood up and clapped. And why? Why did that happen? Because it was a big message that an Eastern guy from East coming to a stage of this, a wealthy, technologically country, and he is saying that everybody is his brothers and sisters, and bringing this universality that was surprising to all Americans at that time, and that made it sound so good. And his appearance, you can always understand that his appearance was very, very impressive. So when he came to the stage and said that, everybody stood up. So for 2 minutes, they just applaud all these 3 words, that brothers and sisters of America. Then further, he starts saying, and the big thing, the big part of the speech was about that all the religion that he said, he starts with this, as the different streams, means different religions, having their sources from different places. So all the different religion has sources from different places, all mingle their water in the same sea. Religions coming from different places, but all mingle the water in the same sea. And then he said, so different tendencies, means different religion, varies through, though they appear different, crooked or straight, it doesn't matter, the path, all leads to God. right? The house, one house has lot of way that you can go in the house, the front door, the back door, the windows, but everything comes down that you get into the house. The same way all the religions that have different path, but everything leads to the same place as God. So what he was trying to say, that he never criticized any other religion. He did not say that Hinduism was better than this or better than that or better than Christianity or better than Buddhism. What he said, that you believe in your own religion. Make it so strong that you can reach to God. So all religion he gave equal respect. It was not that I'm Hindu, I'm following the Hindu religion, so everybody should respect Hindu religion. What he said, if you are Christian, you follow the Christianity because it's going to lead to your God, right? If you are doing Hindu, if you are doing Judaism, or if you are Islam, every religion will take you to the same path of God. That's what he wanted to say in the great the speech that he gave, the first speech. At the end of the first speech he gave, everybody got so fond of him that they started inviting him to their houses to give their speech. He was overnight, everybody started talking about him. The New York Herald reported him saying that Vivekananda is the greatest figure in National Parliament of Religion. After listening to him, we feel how foolish it is to send the missionary to East to this learned nation. What does that mean? That, the Christianity was... Krishu Bandhu gave it. Acha, everybody gets. You got that? So what happens is then where was I?
The missionary.
Yeah. So they used to send people from to change to their religion to Christian. Some of the people go and influence people and say that this is the only religion that is right. Don't practice any other religion. And so that this guy from the newspaper actually put his lecture and commented on his lecture, saying that it feels so foolish to send their missionary to the Eastern, this learned nation. And they all thank India to send him to America. Another newspaper wrote about his popularity, that 4,000 people every day wait for his because it was every day there was some speech were given. So it was the fair kind of thing where the technology, religion, everything was put together in this fair. So it was from 11th to 27th. So every day 4,000 people were waiting desperately for hours and hours to listen to him for only 15 minutes. So, and the organizer were smart enough to keep the best for the last. His speech was always the end of the day speech, and people used to wait hours and hours to just listen to his speech. Now he got so popular that he were invited to a lot of other areas, where he traveled from New York to Texas and gave a lot of speech and educated a lot of people. Eventually he realized that there are some people who really want to learn about the Hindu religion and the Vedanta. So he started doing classes on Vedanta, like Karma Yoga and Gyan Yoga and Dhyan Yoga, and he used to meditate and educate people on that. And there were so many disciples that actually followed him to India from here. So he actually had established Vedanta societies in different cities of United States and started giving classes on them. Now he said this is the time when he needs to go back to India. So whatever he earned here and whatever, there were so many people who were following him that they can now go and uplift people of India. So then he made the decision to go back to India after educating people here. Now in one of the lecture, about his fearlessness, one of the lecture when he was giving, because then when you are famous and people started following you, there are other people who will question you, right? They question your is that true? Like he used to question his guru. People will question him too about his truth. Why is he saying all the truth? Because they didn't know him before. They don't know any background of him. This is the guy who is here and talking about Vedanta and all those things. So there were some people who were in confusion that who they were. So when he was giving a lecture in Middle East, one of the guy actually shoot a bullet on him, and it went past by his shoulder. And but the amazing part was that he continued giving his speech unperturbed. He did not got impacted of any of these things that were surrounded. He was so concentrated on his speech that he didn't even realize that there was a bullet shot on him. And so there was a lot of things that the American learned out of him. And now he went back to India. So when he went back to India, he put all his focus in uplifting people, which he put a lot of schools, hospitals, and put a lot of institution for educating people from everywhere in India. He gave speeches. He actually did the classroom training of Vedanta and everything, and he got everybody making them understand that how Indian spirituality is so strong, that's the strongest part of India. So he actually made everybody believe in the religion, in the Hindu religion, and in the spirituality of Hindu, and how it can bring everybody together. Now, while he was very witty. Also, his answers were very witty. Also, one time he was traveling in the train, and because of his attire, people think that he was a monk. And two kids, British people who were traveling with him on the train, they thought that he's a monk and started making fun of him. And so when the train stopped and he started talking to the train station master, he actually started talking to him in English. And when they realized that he was talking in English, so he said, they actually approached him and said, why didn't you say anything when we were making fun of you? And so in the response he said, oh, don't worry, I get these kind of fools a lot often. And those guys got upset with his answer, but they couldn't do anything else because he was such a strong and impressive follower that they apologized to him about making fun of him. So he was really strong with his goal, what he wanted to do and what he wanted to achieve. One time he met a king in Rajasthan, Mangal Singh, and Mangal Singh was a guy who had a lot of wealth, lot of luxury, everything, and he was like, I don't believe in this people following this stone and doing worship of these stone images and putting Lord's images on in their house and praying them. We don't believe that. So Swami Vivekananda tried to explain him why these images and this Murti Puja is so important. But Mangal Singh did not agree to it. So eventually Swamiji, what he did is, there was a picture of him, Mangal Singh was on the wall. He actually took his picture and threw on the ground and asked one of his minister to spit on it. Now the minister said, no, I cannot. He's the king. If I spit on his picture, he will get upset, and I respect him. I cannot spit on his picture. But Swami Vivekananda said, no, spit on the picture. So Mangal Singh got offended too and said, why are you asking that? So he said, you are not the picture, you are you, right? You are standing here, that's what you are. What is this picture of? Why are you so worried about it? It's just a picture, it's not you. And he said, no, it's me. So then he explained that how devotee sees God in those pictures. Because as you see your king in this picture, you will not even spit on the picture because it's him, where that's not him. Still you believe that it's him. So in these pictures of God and in this idol of God, even you believe that God is not there, but for devotee, that respect of they are the God is always there. So doing the Murti Puja and doing this is the reflection of the God there. And that's why everybody pray to the God and picture of God or do, Murti Puja. So it is just to give them the view of God, right? So he was very good in explaining everything. So now when he came back to India, he made Ramakrishna Mission, Ramakrishna Paramhans Mission, and it is known as, it is still there. It is still in US. There are Vedanta Society in many places of America. And they still make us study Vedanta. There are a lot of schools that are there. There are a lot of hospitals in India that does still are in work. There are a lot of schools there. So they the Ramakrishna Mission is one of the big mission that helps uplift Indian population, poor population, and it's still going on after hundreds of years of his starting it on. Now the main mission for him was, there are four things that we talk about, 4 yogas, right? There is Karma Yoga, there is Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, right? So he was talking about more, he talked about more Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, but Jnana Yoga, he actually took the basis of Jnana Yoga the most. And people were saying that why do you not make everybody study other yogas? You can do Bhakti yogas, and you can do, you can talk about Shiva, and you can talk about Vishnu, and you can talk about the Hinduism like that. But he spoke about one thing, the most important thing. He said Jnana Yoga. Why? Because he wanted to bring people together, right? And in Vedanta, what is it explained is, it's explained that everything is Brahman, right? So everything is Brahman, then I'm not different than you, you are not different than me, right? So if you are an American, or if you are from United Kingdom, or if you are from India, nobody is different, everybody is Brahman. So he wanted to bring this oneness in all the religion and all the countries, and that's what he wanted to bring. So he was against the discrimination between colors, race, religion. He wanted to bring them oneness to all the religion, and he said only Jnana Yoga, where it explains that there is only one Brahman, which everything else is just the projection of it, and that's what gonna bring everybody together, right? So that was his main goal, to explain the world. He did not just say, I'm not just a spiritual leader of India, I'm the spiritual leader of entire world, and I want to make all the religion, to bring all the religion together, right? So that was the main goal, where we talk about that this religion is not good, or this is my religion, or this is not my religion, I don't want to follow these people. The fight is in the world, the fight is because of that, right? Everybody want to say my country, my religion is better, but he wanted to bring oneness in the entire world. So that was his mission. So he mentioned that he went to UK. There were a lot of disciples that he made in United Kingdom too, and one of his disciple, which is known as Swami Nivedita, Sister Nivedita. She came to India and helped women of India, educate women of India, and all these, at that time the social reform, she helped in social reforming and educating in India. There was a child marriages there. Widows' life were different than regular people life. Like if your husband died, the widows were cannot eat good food, cannot wear good clothes and stuff like that. That was happening. So she helped in making the social reform under Vivekananda Swami's leadership. Yeah.
So my teacher said that if the husband dies, the widow, before the culture practice was that they were supposed to jump in the fire that the husband was supposed to, with the husband. Yeah.
It was Sati Pratha.
Yeah. And
that was known as Sati Pratha.
When the British came, they were like, no, this is dumb, and they took it away.
Yeah.
They banned it.
They banned it for them. Yeah. And many of those other kind of the misbeliefs were there that he was against, and he tried to change those ones. So the biggest thing is you guys have to understand that how religion can be. Religion is what we think religion is, or what we think Gita class is, to sit and worship Krishna Bhagwan, or to my life is separate, my other life, my worldly life is separate, and my Gita class is separate. That's what we think about it, right? But here Vivekananda Swami is saying, no, everything is together, right? Our daily work that we do has to be spiritual. So his big thing was, you have to divinize your relationship with human, make sure that human treats each other as divine soul, and humanize your relationship with God, right? So his thing was that the people around you, divinize that relation, make that a holy relationship between two people, that people surrounding you. And then what you do is you humanize, means make God as a human form and then love him. So because he always says that each soul has potential divine, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity in all. That was his whole goal about spirituality, right? He said that spirituality is not for one's own salvation. It is about about serving the mankind. So I wrote the biggest quote that he said, serve to humanity is serve to God. Service to humanity is service to God, right? That's what he said. There were many quotes that he said were very impressive, and his speech was, if you have a chance to read his speech, they are very much informative about how Vedanta can be utilized in oneness of entire world. Lot of good things that he said. I will give you a couple of them because I cannot cover all of them. It's going to be too much to cover in this class, but there are some things that I love about his speeches, and I will read some of them for you guys, so you can get the idea how his thought process was. What was his thought process? So he said, we are what our thoughts have made us. So take care about what you think. Words are secondary. Thoughts live. They travel far. So he emphasized on what you think, what your thought process is. Your mindsets are more important than what you say, because the thoughts goes far away. The speech doesn't go, but the thought goes far away. So make sure you take care of what you are thinking, what your thoughts come, right? If your thoughts are coming wrong, stop it right then and there, right? The thoughts are negative, stop it right then and there and keep on going. Then his main thing, he went to a total different country all alone, without money, and he still came up with such a I would not say glory, but he was one of the famous icon in America, coming out. So think about it, how he was set to his goal, what he needs to do, and how he can uplift India So he put the plan together, he made the goal, and he achieved it. So he said, take up one idea, make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it, live on that idea. Let the brain, muscle, nerve, every part of your body be full of that idea. And just live every other ideas alone. This is the way to success. So just take one idea. When we talk about this higher goal, right? We always talk about this higher goal. So that higher goal of serving others has to be that one idea that you go behind. All the other goals, leave it aside. But then that one idea should be strong, so strong that it has to be in your blood. You should be thinking about it. You should be dreaming about it. You should be sleeping about it. Any goal, right? So everything has to be that idea, one idea that you want to do. And again, I will say that it's not one idea that I want to be a doctor, right? It should be one idea that it shouldn't, not the worldly idea. There should be one idea that how can you help others, right? How can you do something for this world? Are you born for that, right? One time when Swami Vivekananda was in America, and at that time, African American were not served as all the other people were served. So he went to a hotel and they refused to serve him, thinking that he was an African American. So next day he had a speech, and when they saw his picture in the newspaper and they realized their mistake, that he was not an African American, he is a Swami from India and was educating and giving these big lectures, they came to him and apologized him and said, why didn't you say us these things before? And his answer was, why didn't you tell us? And he said, what? He was surprised, and he said, rather the expense of others. And then he said, I did not come to earth for this. I have a bigger goal. I don't want to come to the earth to talk about these little things, right? So his goal was so big that he did not mind if somebody was not serving it, it's okay. He went on. He survived and he did that. He slept in the train. He was homeless for so many days when he came to Chicago. He was homeless, but his goal was there. He didn't mind. He said, I came for God's work here. And this one idea that I have to uplift people of India and to give spirituality to the entire world, I will follow that idea. So whatever he said, he believed in it and he proved it that it was right. Another one, he said that you cannot believe in God until you believe in yourself, right? So, and there is another thing that Gandhiji said, which was very much, he was inspired by Vivekananda Swami. A lot of leaders were inspired by Vivekananda Swami. He said that, believe in yourself and God will help you, right? So God only help who believe in themselves. So everything comes with his thought process, is saying that you have to believe in yourself, then only God can help you, right? Or then only you can believe in God. Otherwise you cannot. So you have to believe in yourself. Then he said, the more we come out and do good to others, the more our heart will be purified and God will be in them, right? So more you help. He always came into helping others. That's what he wanted to do. Now what it is that the Rockefeller, I told you the story before, right? Rockefeller was a big industrialist here, right? When he heard Vivekananda Swami and he went to talk to him, Vivekananda Swami actually influenced him or inspired him and said that, you have so much money. You are not the owner of the money you earn. You are the trustee of the money you earn. So put some social action and give the money to people who need. And Rockefeller at that time got very upset. But then after a month he came up with all the documents, all the plans that he had to use his money in all the servings that he needs to do. Then he said one thing: if money help a man to do good to others, it has some value. But if not, it is simply a mass of evil. And sooner it is got rid of, the better you are. Right? If the money cannot, if you have money and you cannot help others, then it's better you get rid of that money because it is an evil, right? Then he said, the great secret of true success, of true happiness, is this: the man or woman who ask for no returns. The perfectly unselfish person is the most successful and most happy person, who doesn't ask any returns, right? If I do a favor to somebody, if I think that they have to do favor back to me, then I'm never going to be happy, right? The person who wants no return is most happiest person in the world. So then he said, if I love myself despite my infinite faults in me, how can I hate anyone at the glimpse of few faults in them, right? We love ourselves, don't we? Every human love themselves. Nobody can say that they don't love themselves. They will, no matter what. Inside, if you go to the core, you will see that every human being love themselves. And we know that we have so much fault in us, right? We already know that, right? Still we love ourselves. Then why can't we love other person who has a little fault in them, right? So he has all these things that he said were giving, can bring in practice at this time also. Like right now, we also need this oneness in the entire world. So now then, later on when he came back to India, after working so hard, he realized in his last year that he's not gonna, his work is done, he's tired now, and he wants to leave his body and go back to Brahman. And so on July 4th in 1904, he left his body and then he moved on. So he was young, 40 years. In 40 years of his life, he influenced and engaged so many people, inspired so many people, and bring this oneness to the world. That's memorable. And still he's living in the heart of all those Vedantis who are teaching Vedanta and who is still trying to bring oneness in this world. So he was an inspiring leader, teacher, such a inspiring soul, proud for India that soul was there, and he inspired the entire world in bringing this oneness. One of his another story that I remember, that he brought money from America, right, to uplift, to make some institution and all these things. His disciple used to donate so much money. So when he brought all the money back, he gave it to the president of society of this Ramakrishna Mission, and said, I got all this money, spend it to educate people, to bring some good agriculture practices and everything. And then he went outside and he wanted to go from one shore of Ganga to other part of Ganga, and he had to give money to the boatman. And he checked his pocket, he didn't have any money to give them. Though he got so many dollars from America, he gave everything to Ramakrishna Mission to give this, and he did not have any money. So he went back to the president and say, I need some money, can I borrow some money from you? And can I give to this boatman so I can go there? So then the president was so ashamed, and he said, all money is yours, it's not ours. And he said, it's not mine, it's the society, it's to all these people who need that. This money is not, I was just the source to bring it here, right? So that kind of personality he was, and he wanted to just do God's work. And he was very successful because he believed in God and he believed in himself. So he got this success of spreading Hinduism, which was the real sense is, people used to know Hinduism as there are thousands of gods, and people worship these idols and give put water and food for them, these stone idols, and they do this worship and they chant some mantra. That was the Hinduism known to all the people around. But he brought the right sense of Hinduism where our Upanishads and all those take us. The eventual step of that everything is Brahman. These all Devs and Murti Puja is the stepping stone to go to that level, right? All these puja is the religion, it's a stepping stone. When you realize there is a God, and then you went to the step forward and see everybody is in this Brahman, right? This consciousness that we talk about. So, with said that, this is a story of a great sage from India who came and influenced the world, right? So now if somebody asks you about the religion, talk about Vivekananda Swami and talk about what he brought and what Hinduism stands for, right? His main goal was what is Hinduism stands for, to show the world, right? There are many stories. It was so hard for me to just condense his life, because you imagine how many speech that he gave all over the world. So I can speak days and days about it. It can never end. But I have to end because we have to just capture it in this 1 hour. So I just have to tell you just highlights of his life. But if you guys have a chance, and after your studies are done, and if you get a chance to read about Vivekananda Swami, you will be inspired by his life. Okay guys, I will end it here. There is many pages I wrote, but I could not speak all of them. It's almost done. But it's an inspiring story about Vivekananda Swami. So let's end it with Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.